Hey there, and welcome to a deep dive crafted just for you. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the liberal Democrats.
Ooh.
Ever wonder how a political party actually works? Beyond all the slogans and the speeches, we're talking their internal rules, how they handle disagreements, even how they choose candidates.
Yeah.
Think of it like getting a backstage pass to their rule book.
Mm-hmm.
But way more interesting than that sounds, I promise.
That's right. We're going beyond the surface level here.
Yeah.
To uncover the mechanisms that make this party tick, and what better place to start than their federal constitution.
Okay, federal constitution. It sounds kind of formal, right? I mean, it's not like they're a country. Or are they?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. You see, the Liberal Democrats are structured as a federation, with state parties in England, Scotland, and Wales. And get this, they've even written in the potential for establishing more state parties, including one in Northern Ireland.
Wow.
This emphasis on regional autonomy is actually quite unique in British politics.
Hold on, so they're like a party within a party. That's wild.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that impacts how they make decisions.
Absolutely. It's all about balancing power between the central federal party and these state parties.
Okay.
They're not just taking orders from the top. This structure gives regional voices more say in how things are run. It's one of the reasons they attract voters who feel like the bigger, more centralized parties aren't representing their needs.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, something else in their constitution caught my eye. Article 3.1. 8 to be precise. It basically says they're open to anyone becoming a member or supporter as long as they share the party's values.
Right.
What's the story there?
That's a great question, and it speaks to a core aspect of the Liberal Democrats' identity.
No.
This open-door policy is meant to foster inclusivity and build a broad-based movement. They're essentially saying, if you align with our values, you're welcome here, regardless of your background.
That's a pretty big statement, especially in today's political climate where things can feel so divided.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder how this open membership policy plays out in practice, right? I mean, surely with such a diverse group of people, disagreements are bound to happen. So how do they handle those inevitable conflicts?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The Liberal Democrats have a very specific process for dealing with complaints and disputes within their ranks.
Okay.
And believe me, it's not what you might expect.
So imagine this. You're a Liberal Democrat member.
Okay.
And let's say you have a disagreement with someone in the party.
Right.
Or maybe you feel like something isn't being handled fairly.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Well, they've got a system for that.
Okay.
And it's called an inquisitorial process.
Inquisitorial process.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit intense, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
like something out of a history book.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It sounds a lot more dramatic than it actually is.
Okay.
But it's actually designed to be less about two sides battling it out.
Right.
And more about getting to the bottom of what actually happened.
So less like a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
And more like a neutral investigation.
Exactly. Think of it like a detective meticulously gathering evidence to solve a mystery.
Right.
The aim is to present a clear and unbiased picture of the situation.
That makes sense. It sounds like they're taking a very methodical approach to resolving disputes.
Yeah.
So walk us through how this inquisitorial process actually works in practice.
Well, it all starts with someone filing a formal complaint.
Okay.
This complaint then goes through an initial assessment to determine its nature and severity.
Okay.
If it's deemed serious enough,
Right.
they might launch a full-blown investigation.
So they don't just jump into a full-blown investigation for every little disagreement?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They take fairness and proportionality very seriously.
Right.
Now, if an investigation is launched,
Yeah.
it's all about gathering evidence and hearing from all parties involved. Ultimately, a complaints panel, which is like a mini jury,
Right.
reviews all the information and makes a decision.
Okay, so let me guess. What happens if someone doesn't agree with the complaints panel's decision?
Yeah.
Are they just stuck?
Not at all. The Liberal Democrats have built in another layer of safeguarding called the Disciplinary Appeals Panel.
Right, right.
This panel acts as a final avenue for review if someone believes the process wasn't fair.
Okay.
Or if there were serious errors in judgment.
Wow. They really have a process for everything, don't they? It's impressive, actually.
It is.
They've clearly put a lot of thought into creating a system that's thorough and strives to be fair.
Right.
But it makes you wonder, is all this structure always a good thing?
That's an excellent question, and it gets to the heart of a classic dilemma in any organization.
Okay.
While clear rules and processes are essential for fairness and consistency, they can sometimes be perceived as bureaucratic or inflexible.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act, and different parties approach it in different ways.
But that age-old tension between order and flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Too much of either can create problems, right?
Right.
And it's particularly interesting to consider in the context of the Liberal Democrats' federal structure.
Okay.
This structure, as we discussed earlier, is designed to give more autonomy to regional voices.
Right.
So the big question is, how do they balance that need for regional flexibility with the desire for a consistent and fair process across the entire party?
Now, that's a question I'd love to know the answer to.
Yeah.
It seems like a real tightrope walk.
It is. And to really understand how they manage that balance, we need to delve into another fascinating aspect of their internal workings, the Federal Appeals Panel.
The Federal Appeals Panel, it sounds pretty official. What's the deal with this panel? Is it like the Supreme Court of the liberal Democrats?
It's a fair comparison. Remember, they have this unique federal structure with state parties.
Right.
Well, the Federal Appeals Panel is tasked with handling disputes that go beyond those individual state levels. It's like the ultimate arbiter for disagreements within the party.
So we're talking big picture disagreements here, not just minor squabbles.
Exactly. And the fact that they have a dedicated Federal Appeals Panel, rather than just like a small committee, speaks volumes about how seriously they take internal disputes and their commitment to maintaining unity within such a diverse party. They've clearly thought about how to ensure everyone feels heard, even when disagreements arise at the highest levels.
That's really interesting. It makes me wonder what kinds of cases actually end up before this Federal Appeals Panel, and how does it even work?
Well, it's quite fascinating, actually. They have a very specific set of procedures for lodging an application with the Federal Appeals Panel.
Okay.
There are strict time limits, specific forms that need to be filled out. It's all very carefully structured.
Wow, so it's not as simple as just firing off an angry email. There's actual paperwork involved.
You bet. And there's a reason for all this structure. Think about it. With a party as large and diverse as the Liberal Democrats, clear rules and processes are essential for ensuring fairness and transparency.
Right.
Everyone knows what to expect, and every case is handled consistently.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It prevents things from descending into chaos. But it does seem like a lot of hoops to jump through just to get your case heard.
It's true. It highlights that tension between accessibility and the need for order.
Right.
By having these specific procedures in place, they're aiming to strike a balance, right?
Yeah.
Between making the process open to everyone while also preventing, frivolous or unfounded appeals from clogging up the system.
It's like they're trying to make sure that every voice can be heard.
Right.
But they also need a system in place to manage all those voices.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it could become overwhelming.
Precisely. And another crucial aspect of this whole system is the emphasis on impartiality.
Okay.
Both the case managers who handle the initial stages and the members of the panels themselves are explicitly barred from having any conflicts of interest in the cases they oversee.
So no playing favorites or letting personal biases sway their decisions. That seems pretty important, especially in a political context where things can get heated quickly.
Absolutely. It's about building trust in the process,
Yeah.
It's about ensuring that everyone, regardless of their background or position within the party, believes they're getting a fair hearing.
That makes sense. It sounds like the liberal Democrats have gone to great lengths to create a system that prioritizes fairness, transparency, and accountability.
They have. And whether you agree with their politics or not,
right,
I think it's fascinating to kind of peek behind the curtain and see how they've structured their internal workings, Yeah. It gives you a deeper understanding of how political parties actually function beyond just the slogans and the speeches.
It's been quite the deep dive.
It has.
We've gone from the broad strokes of their federal structure to the intricate details of their complaints process and the role of the Federal Appeals Panel.
Yeah, we really got into the weeds today.
It's amazing how much goes on behind the scenes that we often don't even think about.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest takeaway here is that even something as seemingly straightforward as a political party is, in reality, a very complex organism. With its own set of rules, procedures, and safeguards, it's a reminder that there's always more than meets the eye.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the inner workings of the liberal Democrats.
We hope this exploration has given you a new perspective on this party and the intricate mechanisms that keep it running.
Until next time.
Yeah. See you then.